Okay, so welcome to the show, Robert. I'm pumped to have you. We've known each other for a long time, so I'm not going to give everyone the spiel of who you are and all the things, but give me a quick version of like your background and like how you got to where you're at now.
Hey, Chase. Well, thank you so much for having me on today. Super excited to talk more about health and wellness and how we can help moms, better improve their health and their children's health and their family's health for the long term. So I'm a doctor of natural medicine and doctor of chiropractic. I originally got started as a sports medicine doc. I wanted to treat all the athletes, and I did that for a long time. And then my fifth year in practice had a very busy practice. I started to just get really weird arthritis, like really bizarre for my age and my lifestyle was very living very healthy. Um, and no one could explain what was going on. I went up to all these doctors. They were putting me on pain creams, which I'm not against them, but for me personally, I don't take any medications. And so it was just putting me on a lot of pills, a lot of different creams, and I just knew someone right. And so eventually I got vulnerable. I talked to one of my patients about it, and she's like, "Hey, you need to go see this functional medicine doctor in Austin." And so I drove the hour from my house in Georgetown there, and he did a bunch of genetic testing, fully functional testing. I was already taking a bunch of vitamins. I was taking, what I thought was good. I was taking vitamin D, magnesium, glucosamine, fish oil, but I was taking those from a retail source, and I didn't know all the differences in the vitamins. So as soon as I switched on these specific higher medical grade vitamins, it was like a night and day change. I can make a fist for the first time. I could touch my toes. And this is awesome. I just had like my first son. He was like, I think a year old at the time. So like this was a very crucial point. I wanted to be like the best dad and be there for him. And I was just exhausted, just mentally drained, physically drained when I got home, just sitting on the couch, not being the dad I wanted to be. So after I started feeling better, I was like, golly, there's got to be more to this. And so, I kind of changed my whole career path to being more of a functional nutritionist and really helping people on the nutrition side, lab testing side. And I think, unfortunately, in the supplement space, there's so many different nuances. There's so many things to look at, and it's so confusing because you think you're doing the right thing for you and your family, and it might be not a very good product, or it might not be a very good brand or form of magnesium or whatever. But to me, the form of magnesium makes all the difference. Yeah, because if I don't take it, I start getting muscle pain, knots, tension through my neck. And that's like my early magnesium warning sign. Hey, you forgot your magnesium today, didn't you? It's like, yeah, I did. So for me, it's a huge deal to me. And then magnesium, I mean, taking magnesium can actually save us hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars in healthcare cost just from reducing cardiovascular risk, reducing dementia, Alzheimer's risk. I mean, the list goes on and on for this amazing mineral.
Yeah. So you basically found out that by taking supplements, over the counter stuff, rolling in and kind of just doing your own thing, like, hey, maybe these things are going to be supportive, and realized you're actually weren't supporting your body in the needs that it needed. Right. And so that kind of turned you into like, oh, were you deficient? Like, is that what you kind of discovered? Like, you were deficient in magnesium, which is kind of like sparked your interest into like being really passionate about this, like, supplement? Like, what I mean, what
Well,
kinda
it was shocking that I was deficient because I was taking magnesium. I already knew how important magnesium was, since I was like 18. I knew how important magnesium was. I knew you couldn't get enough in a multivitamin, so I knew you had to take it separate. And I knew that. But I was taking products that weren't highly, they weren't absorbed. So basically they were just poor absorption, they were cheap forms, and they weren't actually getting my cells saturated with magnesium. So when I changed that up and got some, they weren't that more, I mean, they're not like crazy expensive by any means, but when I just changed it up just a little bit, it was just a huge difference for me. And I think a lot of people, they say, "Oh, I heard magnesium's good," and then they go take, one from Walgreens or CVS, and they're like, "Oh, it didn't really work for me." I'm like, there's so many different factors. You can be taking a product that only has 4% absorption versus another one that is 80%. So it's just a huge difference in how that goes.
so how would someone know how well, hold on. So before we dive into, like, the quality, because I guess there's a conversation, right, around the quality of the ingredients or the quality or, as you said, the absorption. But how does someone define, like, if magnesium would be something that either their body needed or their kids needed? Like, what are some signs to kinda look for to make sure that they are, in need of that supplement?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, how do you know if you need this product? So some early like warning signs for magnesium deficiency would be like muscle pain, aches, frequent migraines, irregular bowel movements. It could be brain fog. It could be fatigue. It could be eye twitching. That's like a telltale sign of magnesium deficiency. Like if you drink coffee, because coffee can expedite the excretion of magnesium. So if you have like eye twitching after coffee, that could be a magnesium sign.
Oh,
Not recovering,
interesting.
not
Eye twitching. Okay.
it could be not recovering from your workouts effectively, like being super sore, like not just 1 or 2 days, but like 3 or 4 days after a workout. Like that's not normal, right? It could be you're highly vitamin D deficient, even though you're taking vitamin D supplements because magnesium is required to activate vitamin D. There's about 600 different signs. I mean, it could be more severe stuff like arrhythmias, high blood pressure. I mean, the list goes on and on because magnesium is
Wow.
required for 1,000 different enzymatic steps in the body. So it's like the one mineral like you do not want to be deficient in.
So as you were saying, the magnesium, having adequate amounts of magnesium helps other minerals do their thing too. Is that what I heard you say?
Exactly. Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
In fifth grade terms over here.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
okay, good. I absolutely love that. So if someone, as you said, there's 600 different symptoms or things that to be cautious of, but I've kind of noticed like, and just being in fitness and nutrition space myself, like I've noticed kind of a higher conversation around magnesium and quality around magnesium probably in the last like year or so. And I'm like, well, this is exciting for a few reasons. One, like we're starting to have conversations about quality of ingredients, right? Well, quality ingredients is one thing, but also the quality of like the supplements you're taking, right? And the vitamins you're taking. Like that's super important too. And I know you mentioned that a second ago. However, how does someone like, as you said, like there's so many symptoms to watch for. Like, how do you really like what would be the steps if you were concerned about whether that's magnesium or another deficiency? Like, what would the steps that like a mom needed to take to see, or a woman to see if that was something she was deficient in?
So magnesium is very, I mean, so my whole book, Magnesium Answers, it
You
was,
have a book.
I
Yes,
got
I totally forgot to plug that in. Love
it's okay.
it.
Well, so my
Yes.
book was like, I guess it's ahead of its time because when I wrote this book, it was like, hey, we weren't born with a magnesium deficiency. We developed this through our lifestyle. And
Amen.
and so it wasn't just like we were born with this deficiency. No, like magnesium, we have magnesium in our bodies when we're born. Like it is required for life. And it helps ATP production, which is energy production. So if you don't have enough magnesium, your cells don't have energy. So that's just, a very simple analogy. But our lifestyle dictates how much magnesium we use up. So if we're stressed, if we're going on empty, if we're just running on, lattes all day long and not feeding our bodies actual fuel like protein, um, our body's going to start using up a lot of this magnesium. If we're just, if we're not sleeping right, if we're sweating too much, or we're not taking care of ourselves, 50 to 75% of adult Americans are deficient in magnesium. And so that the answer to your question is, hey, how do they know if they should try it? Just try it. And then if you start feeling better, you're probably, because I believe everyone should almost take a magnesium supplement unless they're like you and eating clean, 90% of the time, working out, taking care of their bodies, taking recovery serious, but so many Americans, we live a fast-paced lifestyle, especially if we have kids, especially if we're busy moms with kids, like it's tough, and I wish I could get away with not taking supplements, but I just feel so much better with my magnesium because I'm always on the go. So I have to have something just to kind of support my high-paced lifestyle.
I love it. So with women, and you think about like going, and without the fuel, like the nutrition fuel, or even if you think like, hey, I'm trying my best to eat clean, or I'm trying my best to eat a high protein diet. You're even saying that like, hey, it's probably a good idea to even start supplementing and adding these things to your regimen and your routine anyways, no matter if you are trying to eat clean. Because 50 to 75% of people with a deficiency in magnesium, like that's pretty like hefty.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and we've got, is what I'm hearing you say is like, hey, it might be supportive to you to like even take it no matter what. So, what would be, I guess, kind of some things like some of the top things? Because I noticed a lot of people are like, oh, my kids aren't sleeping, and then throwing around check on their magnesium or make sure they're getting magnesium. So, when you think about like kids stuff, like what are some areas that you can look for to see if your kids are even deficient, or maybe some of the top like 5 symptoms? I don't know. Like,
Okay, yeah, good
what do you
question.
think?
So I have two little boys, ages 4 and 7, and so they've been taking magnesium since they were two. And so for me, noticing what's happening with them, it's irritability, it's focus, it's taking 2 hours to wind down versus 30 minutes to wind down at bedtime. It's sleep, it's regular bowel movements. And so if any of those things are off, or just attention, behavior things that, like, hey, like, why are you acting like this? Like, what's going on? Because sugar depletes magnesium too. So I don't think a lot of people realize.
Oh, we're gonna have to dive into that.
So so magnesium is required to break down sugar into glucose and use it as fuel as well. So yes, if kids are eating a lot of sugar, they're using up a lot of magnesium and effectively using up magnesium in the body. So yes, we need to be replenishing that with these kids. And my boys, my oldest picky eater, probably doesn't get enough through his diet. We are working on that though. So just for us, it's just insurance for him, because kids actually in the studies, they don't have as much deficiency as the adults, but I think that's changing with the current diet and lifestyle that
Diet.
yeah, it's
Yes.
it's huge. It's huge. So
Mm. Okay, so you've already like as they were little, like you started supplementing and giving them are you giving them lower doses? Like how does that look with because there's different sizing, right? Like I don't even know the proper
yeah,
term
yeah,
there,
for sure.
right? Like so what are you kind of or what would be a good starting point with helping your children or helping yourself in sizing of um the dosage, I guess you would say.
Yeah, so there's the RDA, which is the recommended dietary allowance. That kind of gives you like the minimums that you need. And so for like an adult male, it'd be 420 milligrams, a adult female, 360 milligrams. For kids, you can go down there and it's going to be like 80 to 100, depending on the age, and it goes up based on weight. So you're not going to give a kid an adult dose, but even if they did take a bunch of magnesium, um, the good thing is it's very safe. They'll have a pretty big bowel movement because your body will excrete the excess if you have normal bowel and kidney function. But of course, if there's something, of course, always ask your doctor before trying something new. Kind of put that in there. But yeah, but it's gonna be lower dose. But so my kids take about 80 milligrams. If they're highly irritable, or if I feel like we've had like a long weekend and they haven't been eating um, as good as they should have been, we'll take two in a day. So that'd be like 160 milligrams for them. So you have to just kind of judge and see. And also sometimes kids need a higher loading dose, at least, and so do adults, to get out of that deficiency and then kind of maintain it. And so, but I think maintaining magnesium is kind of one of my biggest things of the book is like, hey, finding out you're deficient and then how to get out of that and then maintaining that for life is kind of like the key to ultimate health and wellness, in my opinion.
So if you are looking to maintain your magnesium levels, is it possible to, even though you are supplementing, is it possible to go from a deficiency, start taking supplemental, things to support you, and then be able to get into a realm of like, hey, I don't need to be on supplements? Or do you feel it's kind of like, hey, if we are deficient because of our culture, and we've kind of gotten into the space, which that's a whole nother topic, right? But if we've gotten deficient and we bring up our levels, like, is there a space or a time where we might not need to be on supplements? Or do you feel like it's going to be supportive no matter what?
Great question. That it is possible to do that. It is challenging to do that as well. But I always say, like, when people start doing magnesium, we'll take an adult, for example, who is probably highly deficient. If they're a busy mom, they have a lot of things going on. They live the standard mom lifestyle, right? Go, 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 practice to practice, game to game, preparing meals, trying to do last minute things all at once, all the stress. You're probably gonna be pretty deficient. So I think a lot of people, they start off with like a beginner dose. Maybe it's 200 milligrams of magnesium, but that's going to take a long time to get you back up to an optimal state. So I like to like load magnesium at least initially for 2 to 3 months. You're going to take magnesium in the morning and at dinner. Some of my patients will actually do it 3 times a day based on their levels. We're doing lab testing to really like fine tune that. But if you're just kind of just doing this on your own, you take maybe double the dose for 2 months, then you'll go to your maintenance dose. And if you have learned to like eat magnesium rich foods, you're drinking mineral water, you're replenishing what you've depleted throughout the day, and you found that balance and you feel good, then yeah, it's fine to like take a lower dose of magnesium. I think it's better healthcare just to take magnesium with a magnesium rich diet. So if you can find a way to do that, and you'll be taking less magnesium, but yeah, so it is possible, it is challenging, but you have to learn how to do this. And then I think lab testing also comes into play for someone's like, hey, like how do I know I'm super deficient? Well, there's ways to assess it. And so we can do a lab test. You can go to your clinician or doctor and say, hey, I want to run a RBC magnesium test and see how much magnesium I'm actually getting inside of my cell. And then you can start dosing it appropriately. So if you see that you're a 6.0 milligrams over deciliter for magnesium, and you maintain that with food, then hey, you're good. You don't need magnesium supplement. In my opinion, it's pretty rare. So I haven't actually seen that unless you're taking supplements. So
Okay. So a lot to unpack in those couple of things. So number one, you mentioned labs. So is this the labs you're doing or the labs you're recommending? Is this different than like your normal blood work? Because I know I personally just recently went through a lot of testing like on a personal level, right? Like I went and got blood work and I've had like a history of psoriasis. Like there's the whole thing I've been trying to unpack. Like where is the root cause of all this? Because that's my biggest thing, like helping people get to the root cause. Like I don't believe in like treating and like band-aiding. That's not a word, but I personally do not believe in that. Like, I'm like, no, there is something that caused that to happen. You have to get to the root, you have to treat the root, and you got to heal from that. Is what I believe. And so you mentioned blood, or is it blood work? Is it lab testing? Are you testing for something separate? Because when I know the experience I went through blood work, there was a lot that just came out of my mouth, but through just blood work alone, like I don't even remember them covering the word magnesium. And so like what would someone do, or maybe state that one lab thing that you specifically stated a second ago. Maybe that's a kind of a double question there.
oh, so Chase, when they did your lab work or blood work, same thing. Do they test magnesium or no?
I don't believe so. Like, I don't even remember when he I'm air quoting right now as we're speaking, but when we went over the labs and he's covering everything, like, I don't even remember the word magnesium. And the only reason I would be aware, like, is because I follow you. Like, you've been in my space for a long time. And I'm like, okay, like if he would have said it, I would have been like, oh, right. I don't even remember him stating the word magnesium at all, like when we covered the lab report from the blood
So
work.
that's pretty common. So magnesium is kind of like the forgotten electrolyte. The other electrolytes, sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, they're usually always on there. Magnesium is usually left off. Magnesium will
No
be
way.
tested. Yeah, so magnesium will be tested in a hospital setting because it's super critical. If you have super low magnesium, that's a big deal. But in a normal kind of primary care office setting, they're not going to test magnesium unless like you're exhibiting extreme signs, but you have to request it. There is trouble with that.
Requesting it.
So yeah,
Okay.
requesting it. So request with your doctor, hey, I want to test magnesium. There's two different tests. There's a serum test, which is only like less than 1% of the actual magnesium in your body. And so I don't really like that test because it's like you'll get a test where you say, hey, you're normal, which I'm putting quotation marks because normal is what? I mean, it's a huge range here, and you could be on the lower end, but still be normal when you should have been over here on the higher end. And so we look for like optimal ranges. Hey, you need to be in the upper quartile of that range to be where you need to be. And then since it's only
Hmm.
1% of the magnesium in your body, it's not a good representation of how much is actually inside of your cell. So I prefer the RBC magnesium test. It's going to show you how much magnesium is actually getting absorbed inside of the cell. We call that intracellular. So that's what I look for. But of course, I'll do both tests. I'll look at serum and I'll look at RBC, and I want to make sure that both of those are kind of correlating up in the right direction. But again, it's not really tested. So you went through all these lab testing. And also, so going to the root cause, I believe magnesium is a root cause to so many different issues. If you're just, had a good, sufficient level of magnesium, you could prevent so many things because it lowers inflammation, it lowers blood sugar. I mean, it's just amazing what magnesium can do. So, and I
Hmm.
believe like, and I like people getting to a point where they don't have to take a million supplements, right? So I believe there's like kind of a core foundational group of supplements that most people should take for their health and well-being. And then you can kind
Hmm.
of add on a few things based on the individual, but I don't think they should be taking a million pills forever, right? So I feel like we should get out of that root cause and kind of get back to where we need to be.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that. So earlier, I know you mentioned quality. So like quality of supplements, like sometimes you can get like over the counter. And I say this all the time when it comes to like protein shakes, because people are like, oh, what's your favorite protein shake? I'm like, Whoa, there's a lot to unpack in that question. Right. And I think
Yes.
personally, like just knowing so much about like ingredients, the sources of the ingredients, where these things are coming from, it's so difficult to answer that question when it comes to just even in a protein shake. Right. And so then you think, oh, I'm taking supplements, I'm taking vitamins. Like I got this little, you know, bottle that says magnesium. Like I'm good to go.
Uh-huh.
How on earth does someone know like a quality or what, like if they look at the bottle, like, sometimes you could say, hey, get organic, right? Like what is the
Yeah.
thing that they can try and find when it comes to like finding the right supplement for magnesium?
Yeah. So I would say when you get a supplement bottle like this one, turn it around, actually look at the supplements facts box, look at the ingredients, look at, okay, it says magnesium, but what form of magnesium? Because if it says magnesium oxide, hydroxide, or carbonate, those are very poorly absorbed. So those are the ones that are very common to find at your grocery store, at Walgreens, CVS, et cetera. Not picking on them, but I'm saying you got to be a smart consumer. Turn it around, look at the form. Some of the higher, better absorbed forms are like magnesium glycinate, malate, taurate, and even L-threonate. So just being a smarter consumer, looking at those, looking at the amounts. It gets tricky sometimes because sometimes you have a blend of 3 different forms. Like, okay, how much of each is in there? But they do list the forms from greatest to least based on weight. So if it says oxide first, know that the majority of that product is magnesium oxide, which is a very poor absorbed form. The only reason I could see someone taking magnesium oxide would be like to have a cheap laxative, or maybe that's all they can afford. And I do believe that some is better than nothing, but it's just going to take a long, long time to get out of deficiency with a form that's barely absorbed.
Sure. And you want things to like, if you're going to do something and if you're doing the action, why not do it at the best caliber
Yeah,
possible? Right. Like I believe that too. I'm like, hey, let's level up. Like, your habits should be reflecting, how you want to perform. Like, don't like kind of show up
yeah,
the way you want to be. Right. And so it's like same idea here. Like, why kind of work your way into it? It's like, no, like
yeah,
go all in
yeah,
the sense, I guess you can say.
yeah. Because magnesium is really not that expensive. I mean, for some of these forms, like this one is like $30 for a 2 month supply. You can take 2 capsules a day. I mean, that's really not that much. So
Yeah. That's a couple Starbucks drinks. There you go.
exactly, exactly.
And it's actually going to do something good for your body. Like,
Yes,
hello.
exactly,
I love
exactly.
it. I love it. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your book. Like, what is your book cover? Like, what do you go into?
So
Is
my
it more
book's.
of a
Oh, go ahead.
no,
Oh,
no, no?
so
I'm just
well, first you got to get the book, Chase. You got to get the book first,
yeah.
then you can know. No, but my book is I wanted it to be more of like, hey, this is how we got to this point. Here's how critical magnesium is. Here is what depletes magnesium. Here are the medications that can deplete magnesium. Here are all the things. But then also here's a solution. Here's how we get out of deficiency with supplements, with water, with food, and combining all those things together. And then I kind of, it's got all my things I've learned throughout the years. It's how to be a healthier human, how to pick foods at the grocery store, how to reduce stress, because stress, I have a whole chapter dedicated to stress management, because if you can't manage your stress, you're going to have a hard time maintaining optimal magnesium levels, because the first mineral depleted during stress is magnesium. So there's a whole chapter over that, and there's supplements that kind of go with stress management besides magnesium. And so really it's just a whole guide on, maybe it's like the magnesium Bible, if you will. So it's like going over everything you need to stay in an optimal level. What I found, though, it's a long book. It's over 300 pages. So my next book will be like just the forms of magnesium, because everybody's like, hey, just what do I take? So I'll say, here's what you take, but then you need to know why you're taking that. So maybe they can use this as the reference for later. So
That is so good. That is so good. Because I know earlier, as you were mentioning, like the quality and the different like levels of the supplement itself, I was like, wow, I didn't even like think there's different levels of
oh,
magnesium.
I
I'm like,
know.
magnesium,
But I didn't know that
you know?
either. Like, this is something I had to learn, throughout the years. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, there's such a huge difference in the quality and the forms of magnesium. I was like, oh, because as soon as I take like the malate, my muscle pain is gone and I don't feel anything. But if I don't take it, it starts to creep up.
Wow. That
Healthy,
is
healthy individuals also are at risk of deficiency because of all the healthy behaviors that they do. Even working out, sweating can depletes the magnesium. So it's like, hey, like there's a lot of things that we're doing that are good for us, and we need to keep doing those, but we need to maybe consider supplementation or adding in more magnesium rich foods to kind of counterbalance all of those endeavors. So
Yeah, because what I heard you say earlier, like, and it kind of just I'm re-saying this because I when you said it, I was like, that's interesting. Like as you said, like how much your body uses the magnesium and needs those other forms of minerals to like function, like it to work well, I guess you can say. And so when you said that earlier, I was like, that's really cool. But if someone is, as you said, like I live a healthy lifestyle and like being really active and like working out well and like you're doing all these things, you're still using the mineral. Like it's not right, like you're still using it. And so to be able to be like, hey, pay attention to your symptoms, maybe take it for a little while, see if you see any changes, and then there's your answer kind of deal.
yeah,
Instead of having to go through this full form of like doing all the labs and doing all this stuff, it's like, hey, start taking a good high quality form of the magnesium to begin with, see how your body responds. How long should someone wait to like what are the kind of quickness? Like, should it be like, after a couple of days? Is it like, hey, take it for a month and see? Like, what is that kind of timeline?
oh, that's a great question. It depends on the person and what kind of lifestyle and all the different things that's affecting them. Like for a really healthy individual who's younger, they might take magnesium. They might not notice that much after a few months. Maybe they say, hey, okay, like I have better mental clarity. I can focus more. My brain fog is reduced. But someone who's really deficient say, oh my gosh, like my muscle pain's gone. I can get out of bed without, hitting the snooze button. I feel ready to go. My kids constantly nagging me isn't bothering me as much. I'm not having as much anxiety. My bone health has increased, on their DEXA scan. So there's so many factors that go into it. So it just depends. A lot of people that have followed some of my videos online, they're like, oh yeah, within a month I've taken a different form. My sleep's better, my anxiety's better. Um, brain fog, mental acuity is all improved. So it's just it can be miraculous for some and it can take longer for others, but it's usually working for everyone. So
I love it. So I was hearing that around the month mark would be a good
yeah,
gauge to see how your body's
for sure.
responding.
Yeah.
Okay. That is so amazing. So I absolutely loved our conversation today because we're probably going to have to revisit because I feel
I
like
would
there
love
was
to.
a lot of conversations we didn't even get to like deep dive into. But I think this is a great start for someone to start paying attention to what their body's doing, how their body's responding, and to be able to like assess and kind of, again, thinking about the quality of ingredients that they're taking in concerns to their supplements and vitamins. So I absolutely love those nuggets. So before you go, I always love to ask my guests. Well, I'm going to be asking my guests because you're going to be my first one. So I'm so excited that you were
Yay.
able to be here. But what is a household of health mean to you?
A household. I love that question. So recently I've been all about like, what are we doing for the long term? What do we do now is going to matter 10 years, 15 years later. So I want to be someone who's leading a family that is healthy, that loves each other, that prioritizes health and wellness, who moves, who are not just glued to the TV, who is selecting, nutrient rich foods. And, I think the real flex nowadays is that, health, I'd rather be healthy, being able to move, because I'm seeing a turning point. I'm seeing a shift in kind of this, upper 30s, young 40 ages. Like there's a turning point. People, their lifestyle is starting to catch up with them, and I'm seeing it. Like I'm still running around with my kids, still running the bases, beating all the kids in baseball, and still having fun and being a kid with them. And I'm seeing other people not being able to do that. So I think now is the time to really like, hey, where are we at with our health? How can we improve this? Because the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to really matter. So it's going to catch up with us if we don't start prioritizing our health right now.
I love it. So good. So again, thank you so much for being here today. You were amazing, and I'm excited to dive in the future.
Thank you, Chase. I love being on your podcast. So great questions. I really appreciate it.
Yay! So
Yay.
good. Say good.